This is the new planet system in Stellaris, and it's not just cosmetic, as now we have workforce, zones, and changes to buildings and how districts work. On top of that, pretty much everything, except resources, has been scaled by 100. In this video, I will go in depth and break down the entire planetary system, then give tips on how to use them, then show you ideal built-up worlds to aim for each resource category specialization. This is so you know exactly what is going on in your next Stellaris game. This video is for new players and even experienced ones, as it's completely different compared to 3.14. Now, this was filmed and researched on an early access 4.0 build, so some numbers and mechanics may be slightly different to full release, and who knows, there might be other updates after this. But this video should generally apply. Let's get on with it. So to actually view your planets, you can come over to the right and then select one of your planets. We have Earth here, and there's a lot going on. So why do you even need to care about your planets to start with? Well, the planet produces resources, which is pretty much the backbone of your Stellaris economy. Most resources are produced by planets. There are exceptions like mining stations, megastructures, other agreements, trades, but your main bulk of economy is coming from your planet. You'll be taken to your planetary surface tab. To start with, this will show you everything in your surface, like the districts and buildings and the production. If you do switch over to a different tab, you can see this top remains the same, so you can still see all this information. Now, what is this information? At the top, we have obviously the planet and what the designation of this planet is. We are an empire capital, which is giving us a bunch of bonuses. We then have the leader that's in charge of this planet. We can right click to remove them, but you will want a leader. We'll get more into that later on. Then we have stability. This is the main thing that keeps your planet happy, producing resources, and not revolting. You don't want it to revolt. This is influenced by pop approval rating, which is influenced by happiness, which is then influenced by a variety of factors. But don't worry, I'm going to keep it simple. Keep your stability above 50%. Above 50% and in the green, you will gain resources from jobs. Below 50, you will start losing resources from jobs, increasing crime. You don't want the stability to go too low. How would you increase stability? The best way is to have a surplus of amenities, as you can see here. I generally build amenities if stability is low. There are other factors to this, such as habitability, what your jobs are working, but we will get into that. You just have to start somewhere, and eventually it will all fall into place. We then have how many pops are on this planet, how much crime you have, which you should keep this below 30. Again, there will be ways to influence this with buildings. I'll get onto that. We then have housing, which you genuinely want enough housing. The more you have, the faster your pops will grow. Amenities, which we covered. Available jobs, which is how many jobs are available for your pops to work. And then unemployed. This is all well and good, but how do you change that? Well, the main mechanic which you'll be doing is building on the surface. We generally have 4 districts. This system's used for other planets that you will unlock later on, like ring worlds and habitats. But once you understand this main mechanic, you can apply it elsewhere. So we're going to actually start with the bottom 3 here. Generator, mining, and agricultural, as they're simpler than the city district. You can see how many districts we have and how many we can build. Currently, we have 3 of 8, which are producing 200 technician jobs and 200 housing. That's how you're going to get housing per district. There'll be 600 technician jobs. You can see there's an upkeep cost and a mineral cost to build these. So because we don't have enough minerals, we can't build one. Now, importantly, these give jobs, not the resource. So if we come over to economy, you can see all of the jobs that we have on this planet. These jobs must be filled to work. So you can see we did the math correct. There are 600 technicians and there are humans working them. They are giving us 42 energy for a food upkeep and consumer good upkeep, as all humans need to eat, and they have some consumer good upkeep because of the living standard as well. You produce trade, but we do not need to get into living standards. That is way more advanced than just getting your planet going. You can also control how many jobs are working here by sliding the bar or using the minus and plus, and control and shift will increment this differently. This is useful if you're an advanced player and you just want one job working. You can also click to favorite them in either tab, and your pops will prioritize working those jobs. You can see these are all worker jobs. There are different tiers of population. Usually more basic resources are from workers. Refining those resources, like an artisan, turning minerals into consumer goods, is usually specialist. Then you have elites that you want to keep happy. The key thing to note is if you have specialist jobs and free worker jobs, they will prioritize specialist jobs as they pay more. If you get rid of these jobs by either lowering the bar or disbanding their jobs or replacing them, they won't immediately downgrade and work workers. There will be some time that needs to pass before they're willing to go and work a lower class job. If you're thinking about buying Stellaris, any of the DLCs, or the season passes, consider using my creator code in the description. and pin comment. It gives the channel a kickback and is greatly appreciated. It'll take you to the Paradox store, which will then give you a Steam key to redeem the game. This is not time limited and works on any Paradox games. Appreciate it. Let's get back on with the video. Now we have these districts for mining and food. They do all the same, but they just produce a different resource. Now we do have specialization buildings that are locked behind technologies. These are tier 1 technologies, so you will eventually find them. We did not here. We have found it. Global energy management. This will unlock the specialization. Once we research that, that means specialization is available. We can click this button and there are going to be 2 different specializations you can go for. These will cost 1,000 minerals, but for energy generation, and this is the same for mining and agricultural, it will give you those free building slots. Also per generator district or mining district or agricultural district, depending on the specialization, you will get 100 extra jobs, which if you look, we're getting 200. So we're getting a 50% boost on top of what we've already built. We also have energy research support. This lowers the technician output, gives you the building slots, but per district will give you 50 technician jobs, 50 physicist jobs, physicists output, but an energy credit upkeep per 100 physicists of 2.5. This essentially lets you create insane science worlds. You also do need the unified field theory technology, but let's just build that energy generation district. We're going to see our worker jobs will increase, and we did have civilians fill that slot. Now, a new thing added is civilians. These civilians are essentially basically clerks. So if you have unemployed pops and there's no jobs to work, they will eventually become civilians. Civilians have a food and consumer upkeep, and they produce a little bit of trade and a little bit of amenities. Trade is now a resource. Trade is now used to buy things on the market, and trade will also pay for fleet upkeep as well as any deficits. You'll have to pay for the deficit and trade. Civilians are not efficient to work, so I would recommend trying to fill jobs with them, but they help you out on that early game economy. So once we do have a specialization, we can now build buildings here. You may unlock more buildings as you progress through the game, but as an early game, you will get a Planet Limit 1 conductive works complex, giving you 2 max generator districts. So if we did build this, we can now build 10 districts. However, districts and buildings cannot be unlimited. As you can see here, we have 3 available districts with 3 blocked from planetary features in management. So in total, we can build 6 more. Every single district, when you build one, takes up the total district availability. So you can't just build everything. You need to choose. So if we did build this generator district, you can see it goes down to 2. Just means if you didn't get lucky with how many max districts you want, you can increase this. Then you have the energy grid. Similar to before, it gives a 20% technician output. I would highly recommend building that. It just makes your jobs more efficient. And then you can either build buildings that give you more technician jobs or a resource silo. Now, if we did research every single technology in the game, you can see there's a bunch more buildings that may pop up, like automation building, which automates workforce of generators. So if we built this, it would actually work that percentage of it, saving your population. A population is your key resource. If you don't have pops, you can't work anything. So potentially automating might work out, but you can also upgrade this to do 50% of it. As you can see now, we're saving on 50% of the workers, but pops can get traits and other effects that may actually produce more than the standard workforce. As you can see, this bar is now green, and this is because we have job efficiency bonuses, which I believe is coming from our stability. So you may work the jobs, but you may not have the most efficient jobs as it's just building automating it. Now, the same is true for all of the specializations. And to note, you can only specialize if you actually have one district here. So a tip is you may actually just want one district everywhere so that you can actually get access to these building slots, which at the base level, you can just build extra jobs like the Surface Quarry Depot without building district. So with one mining district, we're actually getting access to 900 miner jobs. And because we do have the planet deficit here of minus 56 energy, you can see in our trade, we now have a planetary deficit of 7, but we're still also minus that 56 energy. And that's because this optimization building has an insane upkeep. What the heck? I guess you're paying energy for that optimization. Now, you might think it might not get more complicated than that, but we've only covered the basic districts. We now have the city district, which before used to give clerks and housing, but now it acts so differently. The city district will just give you housing for every time you build it. However, on top of that, for every city district, we get given jobs and less housing dependent on the zones that we place here. We currently have the archives, which is giving us 20 of each science job, 40 bureaucrats, but less housing. We then have the mixed industry, which is giving 50 metallurgist jobs and 50 artisan jobs for taking away housing each district. So we have 3 of these, which means we're getting 150 each, and you can see we do have 150 alloy jobs, but 350 super good jobs. That's because the civilian industry building is giving plus 200. The buildings do not increase per city district. This is just always 200 jobs. These zones can be replaced if you click mixed industry, then click this button on one of them. It will replace into different types of zones that are all doing exactly the same thing. You could just commit straight to research, which is giving slightly more research jobs, or you can commit to one research type, which gives even more of just that one type. They all give you the building slots, and interestingly, you can also get generator support, mineral support, and farming support. Per district, these will give trader jobs, but also give you 20% technician output. So if we did build that, it does not have any building slots, but technicians are now outputting even more energy. As you can see, from district specializations, we're getting 60% because we have 3 city districts. Now, the building slots in here are all wild because you can't just build any building that you have access to. They are limited to the type of zone. So the mixed industry can only build buildings relating to alloys and consumer goods, whereas the archives is only science and unity. However, in our city district with 6 building slots, we can build pretty much any building that you ever wanted. There are so many here because I've researched all technologies, but that is how you build and manage the planet. How do you affect the specific stability, amenities, etc. up here? The stability is affected by amenities, which means you could build a holo theater. These give 200 entertainer jobs, and they produce a hefty amount of amenities. So our entertainers here are producing 2,200 amenities, which is pretty nice. You could click on these tabs to actually see what gives amenities. Now, interestingly enough, before I would say always build a holo theater because the amenities are so good. But luxury residences actually give 2,500 amenities and 3,000 housing. So on top of getting more space so your pops can grow quicker, you also get more amenities than what entertainers are producing, but also they don't need jobs. We'll build this resident, our amenities housing go up, but there are no jobs related to the housing as it just exists. If you have amenity problems, I highly recommend building a luxury resident instead of a holo theater because those pops can work elsewhere. Now you've fixed your housing, amenities, and probably your stability. How do you affect crime? Well, crime is managed with enforcers, which you get from your planetary capital. On top of this, you can also build the precinct house building for more enforcer jobs if crime is really that big of an issue. Planetary capital is also giving you a bunch of modifiers. This can be upgraded with different technologies and as your planets grow in pops. Always try and keep crime below 30, as when it hits 30, crime events can start to fire, which will massively annoy you, as you'll start getting criminal jobs, which will automatically be worked. There's nothing you can do about it, and they will produce more crime and also take pops away from working your jobs. So finally, if we did build a city district, we're going to see all of our science jobs, bureaucrat jobs, meticulous and artisan jobs all go up in the economy screen, as this now affects both zones. Watch as it goes up, you can see they immediately go up. And the final thing I haven't covered that you could see on this screen is prosperous unification. These are planetary effects that you can find in the wild, but this is due to our origin, which is giving us some bonuses. You may find this on other planets. Maybe they'll give more science, maybe more food. This would be a great indication of what you should build your planet into. Now, the next tab is management. This will see all your planetary effects and your population, your ascension, and the sector. So you do have a planetary summary here telling us our habitability, when it was colonized, and the size. The size is affecting the available districts that we saw before, as well as seeing it here, the 18. You can also terraform your planet, but since we have 100% habitability, that's fine. Now, you may find planets that aren't 100% habitable, and that's because they're not of your planet class. And here are some examples of different effects, like more mining districts and them giving rare crystals, or less max districts and less agricultural districts. Now, the reason habitability matters is anything below 100% will incur penalties. Every 1% below 100% will increase amenity usage and upkeep by 1%, and efficiency and pop growth speed by 0.5. So you're going to definitely want to inhabit any green wheels you see, as these effects aren't going to be too bad since you can work through that pain. However, planets that are probably below 60% is fine. You can see here this has a 30% habitability, and those penalties are very disgusting. Habitability can be fixed with traits like adaptive, or technologies that you discover, or even terraforming like we saw before. Just be careful, as this is the lead cause to people's economies completely collapsing, because the penalties can be very harsh. We then have planetary features, which is responsible for actually how many districts you get on a planet, if you didn't know that before. But then you also may have features that you need to clear, like we start with sprawling suns, which reduces max districts by -1. If we clear it, we also get 100 pops. I would recommend clearing these as and when you can. We then have the population screen where we can see a total growth from last month and then each individual population group and actually how much they're growing. You can go into the details of this, but this video is not for that. Just keep in mind, pops growing is good because pops working jobs means you get more resources. You then have the sector, and then you have ascension, which you can do once you get ascension perks. Essentially, when you ascend a planet, you're going to get better designation effects, which was the Empire capital that we saw before, which is giving us more resources and stuff. This is the late game thing. Don't worry about that until you've finished all your traditions. You then have decisions, which can range from reducing pop growth, never do that, distributing luxury goods for amenities, and different effects you can do to planets. Then have economy, which we have covered in detail because it pairs so well with surface. We then have your planetary armies, which you can assign a general to lead. This is you defending your planet from any invaders, and you can also recruit different types of armies that you can either deploy in orbit to go on the aggressive or uncheck that so they're built and populate your defenses. Again, don't worry too much about that to start the game. Then have holdings, where if you have an overlord, you'll see any overlord holdings, or if you're a megacorp or have a megacorp branch office within you, you can see what they built. As the quick rundown of the planet and the tips to go with it, let's try and build up the planet. Now, this is a game I played that is currently 6 years in, and I highly recommend you actually start building up your mineral districts to start, as there's so many different things you can do with minerals now. And when you actually get your planets after colonizing them, you're going to want to get these zones, which you can only get one to start with, as you do need a technology colonial centralization. Once you get that tech, you can get an extra zone going. So something I hadn't mentioned before was actually how these governors work. When they are assigned to a planet, they will give the planet benefits. As you can see here, we're getting 2% to basic resources, advanced resources, and strategic resources, and it's empire size from pop. They're also giving 200 amenities. These all increase per level. So because they're level 2, we're actually getting 4%. However, when they're in a sector, as you can see here, all my planets are in a sector, these effects propagate down at half the rate. So we're actually getting 1% each per level, so 2%. These can matter as if you have a science world, for example, you can actually get science from jobs. Governors are generally better for resources, and ignore the mess I've made on Earth. That was all to show you this alloy world that I made. So, as you can see here, it's very different to what I'd say in 3.14. We have it maxed out with 2 heavy industries, which are just giving us alloy jobs as we're going for an alloy world here. With 13 city districts, we're getting 13,000 alloy jobs each from each zone. However, you can see we have more of those jobs in the economy, because in the city district, I have built alloy nanoplants, 3 of them, giving 600 alloy jobs each. We then have 2 upgraded luxury residents, giving us all the housing and amenities we need. Could even probably get rid of one for an extra alloy job, as we have 5.8 thousand amenities. We then have absolutely fitted out with planetary limit buildings. We have Ministry of Production, giving us 15% more output. We have metallurgic research labs, giving more efficiency again. We then have alloy reclaimment plant, reducing upkeep, which is the mineral cost. And in the next one, we're actually producing motes per 100 alloy jobs, increasing the mineral upkeep, exotic gases, and crystal plants, which is producing us all of the rare resources we'll ever need in the game. So if you had another alloy world, you could just build more alloy refineries or automation if you really wanted to. I've ignored Fallen Empire buildings. The key thing that's different is I'm actually building basic resource districts in the specialization. Because remember before, we need at least 1 to actually then use the building slots. So the district's giving us 200 jobs, then we're getting more because we specialized, but then we're building the energy grid for more technician output, and then we're just giving 200 more jobs each. We've done this in all 3 of them, which is resulting in 700 energy jobs, 700 farmer jobs. This is because we have food upkeeps and we have energy upkeeps on this planet, and we're actually therefore reducing the upkeep, which means our trade won't go absolute crazy if we didn't build these. And we may as well. This is very efficient for the food generators, as we're only wasting 1 district slot for each of them. Now with the mining districts, we've built as many as we can, because minerals, we have a big upkeep on them. We're also not actually working all the jobs. Every time I try and add more jobs, the game crashes, but these would fill up over time. Now you'll probably have other mineral worlds lying about to actually cure the deficit that you're getting, but this one planet is producing so much stuff. Now if we actually replaced these and say we didn't want the rare resources and wanted alloy foundries, it will actually cure your deficit a bunch more. But then we actually have consumer goods, moats, rare crystal upkeep, especially if we continue building, but we actually get a bunch more alloys per month. Now here's how I build my science world. We're producing about 1,000 technology. We have a bunch of random buildings. They've added so much, but stuff like Field Dynamics Center, Materials Workshop, and Xenobiological Lab are adding an extra research per 100 and more jobs. We have the Faculty of Archaeo Studies giving us more society research, biologist jobs. We have Data-Driven Theory giving more efficiency. We have Research Institute producing more science per 100. And then we have just flat jobs here, upgraded labs. We have Research Supply Depot reducing upkeep, and one Paradise Dome giving us all the amenities we need. We again have one district of each down here just to curb some of the upkeep, as we're producing some energy, some minerals, some food, which still isn't enough to actually reduce the full deficit here. But hey, they're trying their best. You would definitely want to commit worlds to individual resources still, but having one on all your planets is just still quite good, because you can just pump out more jobs with these buildings. We've also switched to a scientist here. This removes the effect of this governor. As you can see, he's in the background here, but not here, meaning we get more science per jobs. If we also put this to a tech world, we would reduce researcher upkeep. And I actually didn't do this on the ally world, so that would reduce the upkeep here. I might have already automatically done that. It reduces that upkeep. Also to note, these are the energy research support, mineral research support, and agricultural research support. That's why we've also built one. These are giving us a little bit more output. These are probably better if you were just going for one technology, which you could in theory do. Like, we could make this a solely driven physics world. Get rid of these. Build up generator districts here. So now we're producing 900 physics research because we've gone physics research specialization. There's a lot more you can do for specialization. And if you wanted to make a basic resource world like we're doing here, we had the most districts for agricultural. So this could become a food world, for example. We will increase the max agricultural districts, more farming output. You definitely want to prioritize the planet limited buildings first, and then you can fill them with extra jobs. Also, your building slots might not all be labs. Maybe you're going for robots or clone vats. You might build one of those there. We'll run another farming support. So we're actually getting 1,100 food from this farming world, and it only has 8 districts, and we can actually fill 300 more jobs. Look at them produce that. We are gaining quite a lot from deficits here, so you might want to make a trade world as well, which you can easily do with just changing the zones. Commercial nexus, make that an energy and a mineral, then 5 of them into city, and then we're just making planet limited stuff, giving them more trade, and then we just spam commercial zones. But I filled out the planet here. You can see we're lacking on amenities, so that's fine. We know how to fix that. Let's build a luxury resident. Upgrade that. Stability amenities fixed, and we're now getting almost 1,000 trade from this world without doing too much optimization. We're like species traits, ascension. You'll probably see me run a lot with just one district here and doing this shenanigans because they are just producing some resources, which is helpful, and it just negates the deficits. You can see it's still negative food even though we're working all of those. Consumer goods might be an issue, so you could just turn this into a civilian industry and have the consumer goods also produced here. Bam, now we don't have as many deficits and we're actually producing more consumer goods, but obviously a lot less trade. This is my starter guide to this. I've played a fair few games and this is looking what the planet should shape up to be. Make sure to subscribe as there's going to be a lot of Stellaris 4.0 content. Click here and watch the video that YouTube's recommending you. Goodbye.